You know, in the beginning of our movies together, we checked into a hotel as newlyweds who hadn't done it yet.
There are 4 movies that are at the top, Jane Fonda noted when evaluating her own filmography. For the 2-time Academy Award-winning actor, assessing her career is tied directly to the specific social causes she supported during different eras. Fonda's professional career spans nearly 7 decades, beginning with her debut in the early 1960s. She achieved international prominence through Barbarella in 1968 and They Shoot Horses, Don't They in 1969. This visibility was followed by profound critical recognition, including Academy Awards for her performances in the 1970s. By the 1980s, she expanded her influence by headlining a highly successful series of fitness videos while maintaining a consistent presence on screen and in political activism well into her 80s. Her public life has been defined by a sustained commitment to advocacy. She has protested military conflicts, campaigned against nuclear power, and challenged patriarchal structures, supporting environmental and feminist causes. Approaching her 89th birthday, Fonda identified 6 films of particular significance. 4 are from her own body of work: Coming Home, Klute, On Golden Pond, and The China Syndrome. 2 are films she admires as a viewer: Martin Scorsese's Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore and Lena Wertmüller's Swept Away. The first 4 represent milestones in her professional development and activism. The latter 2 speak directly to women's experiences and societal inequality. Together, these 6 films provide a comprehensive framework for understanding the intersection of cinema, politics, and personal development in Fonda's life. Number 6, Swept Away. Lena Wertmüller's 1974 film Swept Away operates as a direct examination of systemic inequality and class conflict. Fonda appreciates its uncompromising confrontation with privilege and human behavior under extreme duress. The Italian production functions as a provocative political satire, investigating the mechanics of class warfare and gender dynamics through the isolated environment of a shipwreck. Raffaella Pavone Lanzetti, portrayed by Mariangela Melato, is a wealthy capitalist vacationing on a chartered yacht in the Mediterranean Sea. She utilizes her position of financial dominance to continuously degrade Gennarino Coruncio, a communist deckhand played by Giancarlo Giannini.
Le 7 di sera.
Già.
Oh, Madonna Signore, le 7 di sera.
Raffaella aggressively belittles his political convictions and working-class status. When the motor on their dinghy malfunctions, leaving the 2 individuals marooned on an uninhabited island, the established economic structures of modern society vanish. Their hierarchy completely inverts. Gennarino's practical survival skills provide him with absolute authority, rendering Raffaella's wealth entirely useless. Recognizing his newfound leverage, he demands submission, requiring her to address him as master and subjecting her to deliberate humiliation. The dynamic becomes further complicated when Raffaella develops a genuine physical attraction to him. Their subsequent relationship fluctuates violently between coercive control and consensual passion. However, this dynamic proves to be geographically isolated. Upon their rescue and return to civilization, the original socio-economic power structures immediately reassert themselves, exposing the profound fragility of their island romance. Wertmüller utilized this premise to thoroughly test the durability of ideological beliefs. Critic Carmen Paddock noted the film's brutal approach to class satire, observing its intersection of misogyny and political commentary is explicitly designed to provoke discomfort. The cynical conclusion questions the possibility of permanent structural change, demonstrating how quickly individuals revert to established systems of oppression once societal norms are restored. During one documented exchange, Gennarino explicitly defines their new hierarchy, stating, "The female is plaything for Mascolo worker." Raffaella eventually submits to the coercion, telling him to beat her or kill her, but to hold her tight. Fonda cites this exact discomfort as the film's primary value. For Fonda, the film forces an uncompromising examination of how society attempts to resolve the fundamental contradictions between those with privilege and those without. Number 5. Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. Fonda points to Martin Scorsese's 1974 drama, Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, as a definitive example of cinema reflecting the material realities placed upon women. She values the film's direct engagement with the economic obstacles facing a recently widowed mother attempting to re-enter the workforce.
Oh, you're gonna love it there. I can't wait till you see it.
Gotta have some coral beach.
That it does, by a lot. Oh, thank you.
The film asks critical questions regarding survival and ambition, specifically what a woman does when she is out on her own with a child and an unfulfilled dream. The narrative documents Alice Hyatt, portrayed by Ellen Burstyn. Following the sudden death of her husband, Alice faces severe financial limitations. Liquidating her remaining assets, she leaves home with her young son, Tommy, heading for Monterey, California to revive her early aspirations of becoming a professional singer. The journey is interrupted by a necessary stop in Phoenix. Alice secures employment singing at a local bar, forming a relationship with a man named Ben, played by Harvey Keitel. When Ben becomes physically violent, she is forced to flee to protect herself and her son. Relocating to Tucson, she takes a job as a waitress at Mel's Diner. In this working-class environment, she forms a crucial friendship with a fellow server named Flo, played by Diane Ladd. Alice eventually meets a local rancher named David, portrayed by Chris Christopherson. He provides support for her musical ambitions, encouraging her to pursue her career without requiring her to compromise her relationship with Tommy. The production marked Scorsese's first major studio film, combining gritty realism with Hollywood conventions. Burstyn, who was filming The Exorcist when she received the script, served as the primary catalyst. She sought to develop a story told strictly from a woman's point of view. Burstyn personally selected Scorsese after viewing his work on Mean Streets, deliberately avoiding the sanitized tone characteristic of standard romantic comedies. The collaborative environment encouraged heavy on-set improvisation, contributing to the film's documentary-like authenticity. The script relies on sharp, unsentimental dialogue to establish the dynamic between mother and son. When Tommy repeatedly complains about their slow travel progress by asking if they are in Arizona yet, Alice threatens him with violence out of sheer frustration. Tommy responds by noting that life is short, to which Alice replies, "So are you." Later, when Tommy asks how he became so intelligent, she answers bluntly, "You got pregnant." This exchange illustrates the film's absolute refusal to romanticize the daily hardships of single motherhood. The narrative effectively addresses economic insecurity, domestic violence, and the necessity of female solidarity. Fonda appreciated this realism, noting how the film paved the way for subsequent cinema centered entirely on women's real-world experiences. Number 4. The China Syndrome. The 1979 thriller The China Syndrome centers on a television reporter investigating a near meltdown at a nuclear power facility and the subsequent corporate efforts to conceal the danger. She leveraged her industry influence to ensure the production retained its title, a colloquial engineering term describing a worst-case nuclear reactor accident.
Hello, this is Kimberly Wells, and I'm here at the Ventana Nuclear Power Plant, owned and operated by California Gas and Electric.
Fonda portrays Kimberly Wells, a television reporter attempting to transition from trivial features to serious investigative journalism. During a routine tour of the fictional Ventana nuclear plant with her cameraman Richard Adams, played by Michael Douglas, they observe an alarming vibration and the triggering of emergency systems. Engineer Jack Godell, portrayed by Jack Lemmon, manages to avert a catastrophe in the control room. However, his corporate superiors immediately minimize the severity of the event. Richard secretly captures the incident on film, but network executives refuse to broadcast the footage, citing fears of panicking the public and alienating advertisers. As Kim and Richard continue their investigation, Godell experiences the isolation of becoming a whistleblower. The situation escalates until Godell takes control of the plant's command center by armed force, demanding the truth be broadcast. Studio executives initially lobbied to change the title to Power or Eyewitness, assuming the public would not understand the terminology. Fonda successfully opposed the change. The film premiered on March 16, 1979, initially viewed as a well-crafted cautionary drama. 12 days later, a partial core meltdown occurred at the real-life 3 Mile Island nuclear reactor in Pennsylvania. This historical coincidence radically shifted the critical consensus, turning initially lukewarm reviews into intense national public discussion. The film received 4 Academy Award nominations, winning awards for Jack Lemmon and screenwriter Mike Gray, while Fonda secured a BAFTA for Best Actress. Michael Douglas joined as a producer and actor, insisting on a stark, realistic tone by eliminating a traditional musical score. Director James Bridges prioritized naturalistic performances and documentary-style cinematography. Fonda's portrayal of a tenacious journalist, featuring an auburn hairstyle reminiscent of comic strip reporter Brenda Starr, was noted for subverting standard gender stereotypes. The narrative investigates the deliberate friction between corporate interests, media responsibility, and public safety, It actively shaped public opinion surrounding nuclear energy by illustrating how a minor mechanical failure could result in catastrophic consequences. Number 3. On Golden Pond. Released when Henry Fonda was 77 years old, the 1981 drama On Golden Pond meticulously examines the realities of aging, family reconciliation, and the steady approach of mortality. Jane Fonda treasures the project because it allowed her to collaborate with her father in his final on-screen role before his death in 1982. The story takes place at a summer home situated on Golden Pond in New England. Retired Professor Norman Thayer Jr., played by Henry Fonda, and his wife Ethel, played by Katharine Hepburn, are preparing for Norman's 80th birthday. Their routine is interrupted by the arrival of their adult daughter, Chelsea, portrayed by Jane Fonda. She is accompanied by her fiancé Bill, played by Dabney Coleman, and Bill's teenage son, Billy Ray Jr. Norman is increasingly cantankerous.
Doesn't matter. I act like a big person everywhere else.
Exhibiting signs of cognitive decline and maintaining a strict preoccupation with his own death. This perspective contrasts sharply with Ethel's cheerful pragmatism. He greets Chelsea with the familiar, hurtful remark, "little fat girl," reflecting decades of unresolved tension and emotional distance. Over the course of the summer, Norman develops an unexpected bond with the teenage boy, teaching him how to navigate the lake and fish. Through this interaction, Norman inadvertently displays the affection, patience, and respect that Chelsea had spent her entire life seeking from him. The narrative culminates in a direct confrontation where Chelsea and Norman are forced to acknowledge the deep pain of their long estrangement. A defining emotional sequence occurs when Ethel confronts Norman after he experiences a disorienting episode and loses his way in the surrounding woods. Reaffirming their partnership in the face of his physical and mental decline, she addresses his fear directly. In one of the film's most recognized scenes, Ethel tells him, "You're my knight in shining armor. Don't you forget it. You're going to get back on that horse and I'm going to be right behind you."
You're going to get back on that horse, and I'm going to be right behind you, holding on tight.
The exchange highlights the film's central thesis, demonstrating that unwavering support and kindness are necessary tools for confronting the harsh realities of aging. Jane Fonda, operating as a producer, actively pursued her father for the role. The production offered a mediated way for them to communicate, allowing them to utilize their characters to address emotional dynamics they consistently struggled to navigate privately. The on-screen friction closely mirrored real-life feelings of neglect. Hepburn secured a record-breaking 4th Academy Award for her performance. Henry Fonda won his first competitive Oscar for Best Actor, and Ernest Thompson won for Best Adapted Screenplay. Jane Fonda received a nomination for Best Supporting Actress. The film's enduring resonance stems directly from its authentic portrayal of generational conflict and elder care. Number 2. Klute. Released in 1971, the neo-noir thriller Klute features Fonda as Bree Daniels, a high-class call girl who becomes the central figure in a complex missing person investigation. Upon reviewing the material, Fonda recognized Bree as a complex individual navigating the intersection of sexism, sex work, and personal agency. While the film takes its title from Donald Sutherland's character, Detective John Klute, the narrative is anchored entirely by Bree. Klute arrives in New York City searching for a missing associate who may have utilized Bree's services.
What the hell, it's their money, I don't care. I'll swing from a shower rod and whistle Maytime. Except, this guy really freaked out on it.
As the investigation progresses, the procedural elements quickly become secondary to a detailed character study of Bree's psychological landscape. The film provides access to her inner life through scenes where Bree consults a therapist. During these sessions, she discusses the psychological mechanics of her profession. In monologues that Fonda largely improvised on set, Bree articulates a specific paradox. She feels a greater sense of control operating as a call girl than she does as an actress auditioning for roles. The transaction of sex work is explicitly defined. "For an hour, I'm the best actress in the world," she explains to her therapist, "because it's an act." That's what's nice about it. You don't have to feel anything, you don't have to care about anything. You just lead them by the ring in the direction that they think they want to go. She later confesses a desire to be faceless and bodiless, seeking an existence where she is simply left alone. This vulnerability contrasts sharply with her hardened exterior. Fonda's preparation for the role was extensive. She interviewed active call girls in New York City, documenting the violence they endured and the subtle nuances of their daily work. Collaborating with costume designer Anne Roth, she developed Bree's signature visual presentation. This research process accelerated Fonda's own political development. She later identified Klute as the first production where she considered herself a feminist. She noted a physical shift in her vocal delivery during the shoot. Her voice dropped in pitch as she began speaking from her diaphragm rather than utilizing a high, thin register. Experiencing intense self-doubt during production, Fonda requested that director Alan J. Pakula replace her with Faye Dunaway. Pakula refused, guiding her to trust her performance instincts. Donald Sutherland, sharing her political convictions, provided necessary support. Critics ultimately praised the film's character-driven focus. Pauline Kael described Fonda's performance as pure and unadorned. The role earned Fonda her first Academy Award for Best Actress. Following advice from her father, she delivered a notably brief acceptance speech. Enhanced by Gordon Willis's moody cinematography, Klute remains highly influential for its fully realized portrayal of a sex worker. Number 1. Coming Home. Fonda identifies the 1978 drama Coming Home as her most significant project, marking her debut as a creator and producer. Motivated by her deep friendship with paraplegic Vietnam veteran Ron Kovic, Fonda sought to develop a project that directly addressed the harsh realities of the war. She established IPC Films, a production company designed to develop projects reflecting her political convictions.
I wanted to tell you I'm not going to be around for a while. I just heard from Bob. He's getting his R&R.
She subsequently commissioned screenwriter Nancy Dowd to craft a narrative focusing specifically on the consequences of the war on returning soldiers and their families. Set in California in 1968, the narrative follows Sally Hyde, portrayed by Fonda. Sally is the wife of a Marine captain who volunteers her time at a local veterans hospital, while her husband, Bob, played by Bruce Dern, is deployed to Vietnam. In this medical environment, she reconnects with Luke Martin, played by Jon Voight, who has returned from his deployment paralyzed and deeply embittered by his experiences. As Sally assists Luke's difficult transition back into civilian society, a romantic relationship develops between them. This creates a highly tense emotional triangle when Bob eventually returns home carrying his own severe physical and psychological injuries. The narrative centers on the respective evolutions of these three individuals. Sally transitions from a dutiful military spouse into an active anti-war advocate. Luke progresses from overwhelming anger toward a renewed sense of hope. Bob struggles to navigate a profound loss of purpose and identity following his military service. The romantic framework serves as a vehicle for a broader, unyielding critique of military conflict. A central moment occurs during a monologue delivered by Voight, which he improvised in part during filming. Addressing a group of visiting high school students from his wheelchair, Luke articulates the reality of his service. "We're over there killing each other. I don't want those medals. I don't want to hear the speech that my country is giving me for killing." He describes the military process of conditioning young men to believe they are invincible, only to completely discard them when they return permanently disabled. The camera captures Sally's reaction as her eyes fill with tears, signaling her realization of the human cost associated with the conflict she had previously supported. Maintaining a strict focus on authenticity, Fonda hired Vietnam War veterans to serve as on-set consultants. She specifically required that the film's depiction of physical intimacy acknowledge the actual realities faced by individuals with disabilities. Fonda successfully resisted pressure from studio executives who attempted to shift the narrative focus away from disabled veterans, insisting the film remain an affirmation of human potential. Upon its release in 1978, Coming Home achieved both critical and commercial success. It received 8 Academy Award nominations, eventually winning Best Actress for Fonda, Best Actor for Voight, and Best Original Screenplay. Critics highlighted the film's emotional honesty, praising its documentation of Bob becoming emotionally distant, Luke's struggle to reclaim his masculinity, and Sally's discovery of her own agency. Reviewer Lee Thacker noted that the film effectively humanizes the Vietnam War by focusing precisely on the interpersonal dynamics of the central trio. Voight's extensive preparation, which involved utilizing a wheelchair for his daily tasks for weeks, contributed heavily to the film's recognized authenticity and its enduring cinematic legacy. In the decades since her first screen appearance, Jane Fonda has consistently utilized cinema as an extension of both art and activism. At 89, her evaluation of her career prioritizes narratives that interrogated power dynamics, patriarchal structures, and political complacency. Coming Home solidified her commitment to the anti-war movement and the rights of returning veterans. Klute provided the necessary framework to articulate an emerging feminist consciousness. On Golden Pond offered a public mechanism for personal reconciliation and an examination of universal truths regarding mortality. The China Syndrome demonstrated the capacity of mainstream cinema to warn the public about corporate negligence. Finally, Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore and Swept Away represent the exact kind of cinema she values as a viewer. Unvarnished assessments of economic struggle and the rigid nature of class privilege. These selections trace a distinct personal and political trajectory. Fonda noted in a 2023 interview that she once believed she had to defer to male authority, until feminist activists expanded her perspective on equality and fairness. From Bree Daniels' assertion of agency to Sally Hyde's political awakening, these films collectively address a central question. Each narrative asks, either implicitly or explicitly, how individuals can live authentically within systems specifically designed to constrain them.